Well, here's the end of the bags. They were fun while they lasted, but I'm on to bigger and better things, and this is going to be a video of me uninstalling those and then installing the Fortunato coil. So this is the last time you'll be seeing it on the ground on Airlift 3P. Alright, so first things first, we need to disconnect the battery and drain the tank. Next we want to drain the tank, so easiest way to do that is to take this, it's like a bicycle valve, and just drain the air out of that. But watch out, it's going to have water in it, so be prepared. Good way that I found out how to drain a tank is put a normal valve stem, air chuck in a rag, and then grab it, push it inside, and then wrap that rag around it, and then just have the end of the chuck sticking out the back of the car. This way you don't get water all over the place. Alright, so far I got all the lines in the trunk removed, the manifolds out, the flow control valves, and the drain. All that's left now is to pull the compressor, that line feeding the tank, and the tank. And then of course the wiring harness, which is buried under here. Alright, got the first corner out. Luckily this pinch bolt, we have just had it out, so everything came out nice and easy. I'm going to get this all cleaned up and get the new coil installed. Alright, so the front bag weighs 12 pounds. And then one front coil weighs 11.2. Alright, so the first thing that we have to do when we're installing these is we have to set the preload. And since this is a McPherson strut, Fortunato recommends that you set the preload to 1/4 of an inch. So you want to get your spanners, and in my case I got the locking collars for the height adjusters. But you want to loosen all the tension off the spring first, and then measure from the top of the spring to the bottom of the spring. In this case we have a 7-inch spring. So then what you want to do is spin up these collars so that spring will read 6 3/4 of an inch. Alright, so now that I adjusted the preload, if we go to measure the length of the spring, you can see that it now reads 6 3/4. Alright, so now that we have the preload adjusted correctly, we're going to spin the locking collar up to it. And then take your spanners, and the bottom collar you want to go up, and this collar you want to hold still, or you can even push it down just a little bit. So now how this works is if you want to adjust the ride height of the car, in my case I have a 5mm Allen head here, I loosen this collar, and then I take the entire coil over and spin it downwards to go lower, or spin it upwards to bring the car higher. What I'm going to do for a starting point as a reference for ride height is tighten the bottom of the coilover all the way. So this would be full low. I'll take the lock ring and move it just so it touches that, and then start backing this off. And I'm just going to put it about an inch apart. So technically I'd be an inch over full low. Alright, right there is 1 inch. Lock this down, and here we go. While I'm in here and I have everything apart, I'm going to go ahead and give it a quick wash down too. So now that I got everything pretty much wiped down, as good as it's going to get, now it's time to put the coilover in. So what we're going to do first is lower the suspension, drop the coilover into this collar first, and then tighten down that pinch bolt, and then jack it up into place, throw the top 3 nuts on. Don't forget to put the bracket back on that holds the 2 lines. Now we want to make sure you torque that pinch bolt to 60 pounds. There it is. Now what we're going to do is move the top of the shock into position up top there, line up all 3 of those, and put all 3 nuts on up top. All 3 of these are going to be tightened to 14 foot-pounds. Okay, once you have all 3 of the top ones tightened, you can go ahead and put the strut tower brace bolt back in. Alright, now that we have everything bolted up, tightened, you can go ahead and snap all these hoses back in. Alright, so our final step is to reinstall our sway bar end link. I have to get adjustable ones eventually. I just don't know how long I'm going to have the car, so this will work for now. But you're going to reinstall this and tighten everything back down. Both of the sway bar end links get tightened to 43 pound-feet. This is what it should look like when you're all done. Now we're moving on to the back. This is more of a pain in the ass because I have to remove the lower arm where the bag mounts on, and this toe arm here, as well as the shock and the bag. So this is a little bit more involved, but not any more difficult. Alright, so now it's time to install the rear. The rear is a little bit more complicated because adjusting the preload, people apparently don't know how to do it, and I had to search far and wide to learn how to do it, so I'll show you guys here. Alright, so I went ahead and put the stock toe arm in position. Now I'm going to go ahead and mount the shock in place. So Fortune Autos have the dampening adjustment right up top, so you have to use the Allen wrench provided to get this cap off, and then you take one of the washers off, and now this will slide up inside to where the old shock was mounted. I have that black washer, the OEM insulator, then the body, and on this side in here I have the other factory insulator, which I had to take off of that top nut, then that black washer, and then the top nut. And now I have to tighten that down. Alright, so yesterday got cut kind of short because I actually wound up breaking the adjuster for the dampening on that shock. So the thing is with installing shocks that I still can't seem to figure out is how to tighten them without having the shaft spin. So I was assuming you can stick an Allen key in there and then tighten the top nut while holding that, but apparently not, and it broke the that hex. It broke that off inside. I don't know if you can see that. Not sure if this is what you're supposed to do, but I went all the way to the top of the shock shaft, put some vice grips on it, and then on this side I'm now able to get my torque wrench in there actually. Alright, while I'm under here, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and install these white line subframe bushing inserts. Alright, so I went ahead and loosened up all 4 of the subframe bolts, and now I'm going to do the rears first, one at a time. So I'll completely remove this one here and get that bushing in. As you saw, you could just pry down the subframe a little bit, and then these things are pretty flexible, so you can just kind of pry it down and smash it in there. Alright, now that's in, take a little bit of grease and just smear it around the top edge of that bushing. This will prevent it from making any squeaking noises. Now you can take the rear and push that in. The same thing, take a little bit of grease and just smear it around that bottom edge. Alright, the front ones aren't any more difficult, it's just you have a couple more steps to do. In order to get enough sag on the subframe, there's 2 bolts that hold this brace on here. They're buried under here, so you gotta pop out these 2 clips, and then there's 3 number 8s underneath. Okay, so now to set the preload for the rear, what you have to do first is get all the tension off of the spring, so move these collars all the way up and measure the spring. This spring is 9 inches. So what we have to do now is turn this collar down 1/4 of an inch. This way our preload is set to 8 3/4. Now when we measure the spring, we're right at 8 3/4. Alright, so now the only thing that we have to do is make sure that we tighten this locking collar onto that bottom collar. Alright, so now that we have the preload set on the spring, we gotta tighten the bottom, or I'm sorry, loosen the bottom of the shock into the arm to set the droop. Once you have that pretty much snugged up into the bottom mount, you're done. Put the bottom nut on and tighten it up. Alright, finally got everything finished up, and now it's raining. My trunk looks so empty without that tank sitting right there and all that other garbage that was in here. Well guys, that pretty much wraps everything up. I'm sure by the time you see this video, I'll already have my opinion on how these things work. I'm going in feet first, hoping that they're going to be awesome, and I'm sure they are. If you guys like my videos, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up. That'll really help me out. And check out Fortune Auto. Depending on what car you have, maybe they have something for you. For now, I gotta get cleaned up and get my wheels back on and go play out in the rain.